Please be aware that this podcast has reference to drug and alcohol use and paraphernalia and may not be appropriate for some people in early recovery. Happy New Year, everyone. This is right on time for you while you use your high-tech gifts, and we know that this will be enlightening because we're going to be talking about social media addiction. My name is Dr. Mahjubeen Islam.
And I am Dr. Ketley Daniels.
And we are so happy that you've been following along with all of our 18 Treat Addiction podcasts. The information in this podcast cannot replace your seeking professional help. Please contact your primary care provider so they can refer you for expert counseling help if this is needed. Before we begin, I guess we just need to lay the groundwork to see what exactly is social media addiction, because we are just surrounded by these phones that we cannot do without, and it can become like a national emergency if you cannot locate your phone. So addiction is a different issue, however. And social media addiction is the obsessive use and focus on social media websites and apps, even though the use causes negative consequences, such as relationship issues, anxiety, and low self-esteem.
As we embark on this journey, with our listeners, this will sound very redundant because addictive social media use will look much like many other broadcasts on substance disorder and other behavior disorders, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this mood modification, getting this emotional high from the use of your phone. You have some behavioral, cognitive, emotional preoccupation. Like if you don't have your phone right next to you, you're thinking about using it, you're thinking about what's going on. You get tolerance because you need to spend more time to get more information. You have some withdrawal symptoms, experiencing unpleasant physical and emotional symptoms when social media use is restricted or stopped. You get cranky and irritable if you lose or miss your phone or misplace something. You don't have time to sit on your laptop. You get into conflict because sometimes your husband or your child or somebody wants your attention, but where are you? Oh, you're stuck with your phone. They're talking to you. What are you doing? You're stuck with your phone.
Yes.
And then for those who have significant issues with it, they have relapses when they are not able to use their device. They have to go find it and then sometimes even use it undercover so that they're not seen because of this addiction to the use of this. The phenomena of social media addiction can be largely attributed to the dopamine-inducing social environment. So we're talking again about that dopamine system, the pleasure sensation, the transmitter that elicits and causes some of these behaviors to become repetitive and addicting. Social media platforms such as TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, all the others, Instagram, produce the same neural circuitry that is caused by gambling and recreational drugs.
Wow.
So can you see, we're talking about the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
We talked about the natural laws of health, and one of them is temperance. It's being able to monitor yourself and use judgment in how much you do things. But listen to this. This is very important that neuroscientists have compared social media interaction to a syringe of dopamine being injected straight into the system. Is that powerful or what?
It's incredible because you spoke of withdrawal symptoms. So there was this Twitter withdrawal experiment. A journalist conducted this experiment as to see how addicted he was to Twitter. So he pledged to go without it for a week, but found himself, this is so incredible, unconsciously typing twitter.com into his browser multiple times a day.
Wow.
The compulsion was so strong that he experienced withdrawal symptoms with anxiety and a sense of isolation. Mm-hmm. Because, it gives you this false sense of society,
right,
that there are so many people around you.
Right.
And it was an eye-opening experience about his reliance on constant digital connection.
Wow.
And this kind of lends us to the point of how social media affects the brain. because we find that it is addictive both physically and psychologically. And according to a new study by Harvard University, interaction on social networking sites lights up the same part of the brain that also ignites when taking an addictive substance like we were referring to. The same criteria and with other substances and with alcohol. The reward area in the brain and its chemical messenger pathways affect decisions and sensations. When someone experiences something rewarding or uses an addictive substance, neurons in the principal dopamine-producing areas in the brain activate and the dopamine levels rise. Like you said, it's like injecting a syringe of dopamine. And therefore, the brain receives a reward. And that sensation of a reward, and we'll go on to see how this reward really works, associates the drug or activity with positive reinforcement.
Exactly.
And positive reinforcement is a very observable in social media usage when an individual gets a notification such as a like or a mention.
Right.
Can you imagine? The brain receives a rush of dopamine.
Right.
And I mean, this is happening and we don't even know it.
And it's self-reinforcing.
Yes, it's self-reinforcing and sends it along reward pathways, and the individual feels pleasure. And social media provides an endless amount of immediate rewards in the form of attention from others for relatively minimal effort.
How many likes did I get?
How many likes? And you're surrounded. I mean, there are people with Twitter followings in the millions.
Right.
You know? So the brain rewires itself through this positive reinforcement, making people desire likes, retweets, and emoticon reactions like the emojis. Another perpetuating factor of social media is the reward centers of the brain are most active when people are talking about themselves. I found this very curious.
Isn't it, though?
It is so interesting that in the non-virtual world, like we're sitting around in a conversation in a living room, whatever, among people talk about themselves around 30 to 40% of the time. But in social media, showing off one's life and accomplishments, people talk about themselves a staggering 80% of the time.
Staggering.
It is. It really is. And when a person posts a picture, they receive positive social feedback, which stimulates the brain to release dopamine, again, rewarding that behavior and perpetuating the habit. Social media use becomes problematic when someone views social networking sites as an important coping mechanism. So if you notice, you'll go to restaurants and, the family is together, but they're all on their phones.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's very, very awful.
Disturbing.
I have patients, for instance, particularly adolescents and young adults, that cannot give me a proper history. But if I was to tell them that, could you text? They'll text, like an incredible speed. So the continuous use of this eventually leads to multiple interpersonal problems because it's a very sad thing that a person with probably a pretty good IQ cannot interact with me appropriately and give me a history.
And converse with a person.
And then when this happens, it causes people to engage in the social networking behavior even more because it feels good. Because dopamine is a feel-good chemical.
Right.
So they feel good. And social media platforms drive surges of dopamine to the brain, and this causes the consumer to come back over and over again. The shares, likes, and comments trigger the reward center and result in a high similar to the one that people feel, like you said, when people are gambling or using drugs.
Yeah.
This is like it's in the palm of our hand, this addictive device.
Yeah, and it feels normal. It feels more natural for them to be in that environment. I was talking to a young adult in my office today, and I said to her, and I think it dated me when I said, "Have you seen The Matrix?" Of course, she hadn't seen The Matrix. I know she hadn't seen The Matrix. I said, "You need to go watch The Matrix." Because I was telling her how, this one gentleman who was eating the steak, I don't know if the older listeners will relate, and he said, "I know this is not real, but it tastes so good," And it's the same thing for some of these, It feels real, it feels normal, it feels natural to be on this device, but it's not a real life.
And when you talk about The Matrix, actually the older millennials, no, even the regular millennials, they've seen the development and the evolution of the smartphone.
Yeah.
Because at the ages that we are, obviously we saw it, but even they there was a time when there was no smartphone,
Right.
and then there was this big, huge suitcase, like a
Yes.
briefcase kind of a thing. And then technology is so amazing that it became so small.
Yeah.
So we've seen the evolution, and therefore we see also the evolution of the addiction.
Yeah. And now you can text full sentences and not have to just use abbreviations like they used to years ago. Remember those days?
Remember those days too, for sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So I think, how do we recognize social media addiction, though? Because although many people have become habituated to the use of social media, very few are genuinely addicted. And so, how do you know you are one of those who is having problem? Well, do you tend to spend a lot of time thinking about social media or planning to use social media? Do you have an urge to use social media more and more? Like you really feel like, I need my phone, where's my phone? And you get spazzed when you can't find your phone? Do you use social media for longer periods and forget about your personal problems because you get lost in the media? Do you try to reduce its use without success? Does that sound familiar? Can you cut back? But no, I
Yeah,
can't.
just like
I need
substance
it.
use disorder,
Mhm.
for sure.
Do you become restless or troubled if you're not able to use your social media? Do you find yourself that in spite of negative impact on your life, like you're not spending time studying or time with your family, time with your spouse, in spite of those problems, you still find yourself gravitating towards it? But if you find that you have yes to more than 3 of these questions, it may indicate that there is something there that you need to take a look at. Social media addiction is when a person feels an extreme compulsion to log in or use social media. An extreme compulsion. They may also have an overwhelming concern about social media and spend more and more time to its use. And I at the bottom of certain reels, you'll see the like buttons and the number. Some people are fixated on watching that number grow. How many people are liking what I've posted?
For sure.
It's a behavior addiction, meaning that someone is dependent on an activity or an action. If this is taking more and more time away from other things, then you may have a problem. So symptoms of social media addiction may include compulsion to check it, spending more time on social pages, spending less and less time on offline activities, changes in mood, particularly when not looking at social media, withdrawal symptoms, more irritable, more annoyed, conflict because of it. So these are some very simple things you can look at and do some introspection and consider, do I have a problem with this? And what should I do about it? In 2019, a survey was done. 40% of the individuals in the United States ages 18 to 22  40% reported that they felt addicted to social media.
And you see that. You can see that in people. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you may, we've listed a number of things to look for. Not everyone who is overusing has an addiction. So we know some of the signs: the preoccupation, the increased use of time, the neglecting of responsibilities, the emotional impact, the social and relationship problems. When you start seeing the combination of some of these particular signs, it is time to do something about it. And we're going to talk a little bit at the end to what can you do.
Right,
But
right.
these are the things to look for, and then you'll know you may need to get some help.
And in the same vein, what are the downsides of social media addiction? It seems kind of like obvious, but I think listing them would make our audience realize that they are not small. And obviously, engaging in social media once in a while is unlikely to be harmful, but the negative effects of overusing it or being completely getting consumed by it, it leads to low self-esteem, which can be prompted by incorrect perceptions that others' lives are better than yours. And people don't realize it when they have bunches of photos of, Jamaica on Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
But the person is posting those photos, but they're not posting their bank balances or their financial problems or that they can't pay their mortgage or they can't afford food.
Right.
But they are only posting the really glamorous stuff, and people are not going beyond that or behind it. it really creates an increased sense of isolation and loneliness. Even though it's a virtual world, there are lots of people behind the screen if you have bunches of followers, but basically here you are on your phone sitting alone. Causes anxiety and depression, social anxiety disorder, and our wonderful abbreviation FOMO, the fear of missing out, leads to more social media usage, and the vicious circle continues. Disrupted sleep patterns. I really focus. So patients are really cute. Doc, I have trouble sleeping. Okay, a full history, this, that. We decide that, there's sleep issues. So then I ask them, are you on the phone or the computer, tablet, television before you go to bed? Oh, yeah, I'm on the phone. So it's just like caffeine use,
Right.
I'm having a Mountain Dew while I'm trying to sleep,
Right.
So I tell them that, there's this light, the blue light that's emitted from the screens. It suppresses melatonin, which causes sleep. So that's why you are not sleeping properly, and there's a problem with sleep onset. So why don't you get rid of all devices for at least an hour before you go to bed? And I noticed that in myself, that I would be on the computer for a long time and I'd go up to bed and I'm like laying there. And so I ordered these blue light filter glasses. And then when I had these glasses made, I told them, can you put in the blue light filter? And they said yes. I was like, oh. So now I can work and I can go to bed directly. But if you have a significant sleeping problem, please do not use the phone, tablet, television before you want to go to bed. And obviously it causes decreased physical activity, and we have an epidemic of obesity in the United States. Poor grades or work performance, because it sucks you in. It's like really a very sneaky sort of a
It's a sneaky sort of
process.
A thing. It really is.
And you ignore the relationships in your real life, like we mentioned. Like, what's the point of going out to dinner together for a family if all of you are going to be on the phone together?
On the phone.
I mean, and so I have a rule that during family time and when we're in the family room, you don't get to being on your phone unless it's an emergency. So the phone has to be left behind, and it certainly can never come to the dining table. It's not, that's not happening.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, and people have a reduced ability to empathize with others. It also increases the risk of suicide and cyberbullying. And this is really illustrated. The damage that social media causes is about the parent who missed real moments. So this was a mother who became so addicted to documenting her toddler's milestones for Facebook and Instagram that she would stop her child mid-play to pose for pictures, redo activities for better shots. One day the toddler asked, "Are we doing this for the phone again?"
Oh, wow.
And then the mother realized what she was doing.
Wow.
And she was spending time curating the moments rather than living them.
Yeah, it's true.
It's absolutely true.
It's very true, yeah. I think when we talk about the use of social media, we want to know, the audience would love to know, how can you decrease your social media use? And I know even as we say the words, how can you decrease your use? Someone's having some conniptions.
Conniptions. I haven't heard that word in a long time.
I know. I found it right from the atmosphere. I found it.
It's like 900 years old.
Yes. They're having conniptions. Like, what? What do you mean? Whether you have social media addiction or not, there are some things you can do differently. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's also important to take regular breaks from social media altogether. I know you're out there thinking, but what if I miss something? What if somebody calls me? Believe it or not, there was a time we didn't carry phones with us everywhere we went.
Yes.
There was a time they had to wait until we got back home for us to return a phone call.
Yes, and listen to the answering machine.
And listen to the answering machine, It sounds very, very challenging, but you can take regular breaks. Depending on your needs, your break can be maybe for a whole day, maybe for an hour, maybe for, don't get all convulsive out there, but a month.
Unplugged. Unplugged for 1 month.
Get unplugged. Although I was going to be digressive in this thought. This woman on the news the other day, she said she wanted to unplug from everybody, and then she went missing, and they found out that she had just left and She's now in Mexico. This is just yesterday. I saw this on
Oh,
the
wow.
news. She wanted to unplug from her connectivity. But let yourself be in control of the decision to use your device. Limiting social media contact may be difficult for some people with the addiction. However, it's an important step to consider taking if you're having issues with it. And there are some ways. Keep some apps out of sight. Leave the phone in another room. Keep the phone out of the bedroom. But I know some people will be sitting there thinking, but what if somebody's calling me? What if there's an emergency? Well, if there's an emergency and someone is dying, chances are you can't help. Chances
Good
are,
one. I love it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chances are you can't help. They'll die 911. Download apps that can limit the time that you spend on the social media. I mean, and you can track it. I think my Android tells you periodically how your time
Yeah,
has been
and
used
so
on
does
your
the
phone.
iOS. It tracks it.
Okay. Find a hobby that does not require the use of screens. Avoid taking the phone to family meals, as you've said
Like I
several
said,
times
yeah.
already. And I think for some people, they need to create some new activities. I'm a fan of exercise. I mean, I think exercise works for everything. But before I get into that, turn off the notifications. Your phone shouldn't be dinging all the time.
And I want to interject and talk about, so people have different styles of, so they're texting you. And so my daughter is texting me and she says one thing and then she hits send. And so it dings. Then she says another thing, it dings. Then she says another thing and she said, so I said to her, I said, you know what? I keep all my notifications off except for
Yes.
family.
Yes.
And if you're going to send me texts like this in which my phone is dinging like that,
Yeah.
I'm going to silence you too. Okay? What you do is you write a paragraph.
Yeah.
Write all your
Yeah,
thoughts.
all your thoughts. Yeah.
And then hit send.
then-
Don't just keep dinging me like
Yeah.
that.
Did she? But I'm sure she got the point.
She got the point.
I'm sure.
But she relapses. Let's talk about relapses. Yes, yes.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. But you should try to ignore negative messages. Take frequent breaks from social media. Ask friends and family for support. I mean, you can literally ask someone, can you hold my phone for me for an hour, then give it back to me? Ask for help as you need. And then if you cannot control this, if you cannot rein it in, then you may need to step outside and get some professional help.
So we will be talking about how we can deal with social media addiction by the adults, but how parents and guardians can help is important because I think that there's a great deal of worry and frustration among parents about how to deal with this because the pressure of society and of their children it's not easy to deal with. So some strategies are help your teen develop effective coping mechanisms and strategies to manage their stress, anxiety, frustration, or sadness. Include exercise, always follow
That's my
Dr.
favorite.
Daniels's prescription.
That's my favorite.
Exercise in a bottle.
Exercise in
So
a bottle.
always go exercise, team sports, or even
Team
talk
sports,
therapy.
Bike riding.
Yes, it's like, and kids cannot play the way we played when we were
No.
children. And they've heard this like 900 times,
Yeah.
but it's very, very true that they do not have the ability to enjoy the backyard the way that we did when we were children
Yes.
because of the social media. Getting them outside to experience nature
Yes.
is very therapeutic. And working with your teen to manage their screen time because it can also be managed by the offending
Right.
phone itself.
Right.
And setting up long-term goals and strategies to sustain a healthy relationship with social media and find the type of support that works for your teen. So this is a very important thing. Like I say, you have to tailor the treatment to the patient. So with children also, you have to tailor the management for what is going to work because we know our
Right.
children well and we have to create
Right.
strategies that are going to work for them to manage negative emotions, feeling overwhelmed or preoccupied.
And I think as parents, we have to be creative in how we encourage the use of social media. So in my mind, I'm thinking there are so many people who give their young teenagers, 11, not even teenagers, 12-year-old phones. I think you can get them a regular phone that can just make phone calls. It doesn't have to be on social media. You can teach your children, this is why we're doing this, and that way. If I tell my family, hey guys, well, when they were younger, We're going to go do this, this, and this. The way I present it to
Yes,
them,
yes, yes. The packaging is very important.
very important.
The gift wrap is
The
very
gift
important.
wrap is very important. You know, we're going to go to the blah, blah, blah. We're going to go rollerblading today. We're going to go iFly. iFly is fun. I recommend iFly. Even young adults enjoy that. You know, there are so many activities you can do, and you can't take your phone in that drone.
Right,
You know?
right.
So there are many things you can do to encourage interaction
Mm-hmm.
without having to say no phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to go bike riding, you cannot go bike riding and be on your phone. You cannot do. So you can be very creative in how you change how you engage and how get them away from it. As we said before, one of the main things in our culture is this issue with being able to be more disciplined, and we have to teach our children how to do that. We have to reduce our screen time. We have to find ways of occupying the time by doing other things that are more socially engaging.
Right. And you want to talk about digital detox?
As we're summarizing, and some of this may sound a little bit redundant, but for treatment and management of social media addiction, one of the mainstay is the digital detox. It's a period of time during which someone significantly reduces the time spent using electronic devices, whether it's your smartphone, your computers, or any devices. And I've already mentioned that for some of you listening out there, this is going to be very, very stressful. But the benefit definitely will outweigh any negative you may experience. So as part of treatment, one is digital detox. Self-assessment. Take a look at yourself. Do some introspection. Recognize your patterns of overuse or just use. And what are you neglecting? What are you doing that you are not getting to other things because of being on this device? Set boundaries. For example, if you use your telephone or your device, whatever it is, a tablet, so don't say I said phone. It could be your tablet or your computer, your desktop. Set amount of time that's reasonable. Do you think 5 hours sitting on the device is reasonable? I don't think so. I don't think so. So maybe give yourself, if you were doing 5 hours, maybe do a couple of hours. Turn off those notifications. We said that earlier. That way you don't feel like a knee-jerk reaction to turn your head whenever you hear the ding.
Or being on a leash all the time.
Or being on a leash all the time. And if you need more help, it's okay to go see a counselor so you can set a plan and come back and review whether or not that plan is working for you. And develop some healthy habits. Did we mention exercise before?
Oh my God, exercise in a bottle, Dr. Daniels.
Exercise in a bottle. I think we've said that. And we talked about all the other things you can do. You can paint. And I'm a Bob Ross fan. I have a bunch of painting at my home that after a while I had too many. I didn't know what to do with them. Because you can paint, you can crochet, you can exercise, you can read. Oh, by the way, as a segue, I was at $5. A store goes $5 or below, something
five or below. Yeah,
below.
yeah.
I was looking for a little charger, but anyway, I came across a book. I said, "Oh, I want that." It's Government 101. I'm just going to sit there and read about the government, how it should work, rather than
delightful.
Yeah. Build in-person connections. Maybe a card playing group. Maybe a working partner. Mindfulness and stress management. There's so much you can do, but at the end of the day, if you cannot, using these activities, change your behavior, you may need to get some professional help. We're here for you.
There is a treatment, but like we always say in medicine, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So what are the preventive measures? It's primarily educating others and ourselves about responsible usage, and knowing the potential negative impacts of excessive social media. And I think it's important to ask one. I while I was preparing this, I asked myself, am I addicted to social media? And I got this wonderful reply. No, because you leave your phone in your car for long periods, and you say, "Oh my God, I'm on call. Get that phone."
Yes.
So I was pleased with that. Encourage offline activities like you just talked about, real world interactions and hobbies, because they are so much more pleasurable than what social media offers. And I think modeling healthy behavior by parents is very, very, and educators is very important, because like they say, children don't follow what you say. They follow what you do. So when we identify early and signs and we implement treatment strategies and we model well, it all goes towards avoiding social media addiction and improving our mental well-being. So at the end, in the last one, we forgot to talk about it, but Dr. Daniels, what is your take-home point from this?
Oh, there's so many. I'm thinking in general that we're living in an era where we are so fortunate to have access to information, a plethora of information, accessibility. It's a beautiful thing, and to be connected to so many people all over the world, literally. I have friends that I've traveled with, I meet on vacations. I can stay connected with them through WhatsApp. It's awesome. But at the same time, I think we need to be very careful how we use these devices. Just like food is good, but too much is not good. Just like even exercise, when we talk about exercise addiction, too much of anything, we have to be very careful. But with the developing brain, with teenagers, with the social issues that are emerging because of social media, we need to be more careful, and we need to limit the use of these devices. Just police yourselves. You can do this.
Right. And like you said, that we cannot live without. I mean, the smartphone basically controls our lives, our schedules, and everything's in there. But my take-home point, and in summary, would be let's enjoy the real and not the virtual.
Yes, I like that.
Because the real interaction with people, because if you remember in COVID, when in the incarceration of COVID that we had, it was the increase in depression and all of that was just so intense because the interaction with human beings just left. So the real is so much more enjoyable than the virtual. We really hope that we lent something to our audience's information. And our next episode will continue with behavioral addictions, and we will discuss sex and porn addiction. And we're getting saucier as we go along, as you can see. And we hope that you will join us. I'm your host and producer, Dr. Mahjabeen Islam.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Kathleen Daniels.
And our executive producer extraordinaire is Chris Pfeiffer. Do share this podcast with friends and family, for it is only through education that our society can be helped and we can stem the destruction that drug use, alcohol use, and behavioral addictions cause. Just go to wgte.org/treataddiction or wherever you stream your podcasts, and we feel will really enjoy all the episodes that have dropped. And with all the challenges of life, do remember, patience in difficult times and gratitude always. See you soon.
WGTE. Voices around us.
WGTE is supported in part by the American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated by the City of Toledo and the Lucas County Commissioners and administered by the Arts Commission.